how long have you been seeing clients?
I've only, as you said in your opening remarks, Mark, I've only been a hypnotherapist for 3 years.
And how long have you been doing this with?
And I've been using this since last September.
So almost a year.
Yeah, coming up to a year. Of course, yeah, it's nearly a year.
Do you know how many clients that have done this?
I wouldn't like to hesitate to guess, actually, but I say since last November, because I ended up on the local television news, and since then I have seen between 40 and 50 people a week, every single week since then.
Wow. See, that's the part that really intrigues me. I mean, it's a very sexy topic. People, articles, papers, magazines, television, radio, they really want more of this. I mean, and it's an epidemic of obesity in the country. I really feel like, they say that America is not an exporter anymore. I think they're exporting obesity around the world with all their fast food joints. And this is a rising problem, which, if you offer people a solution that is reasonably priced, obviously, you get 50 people a week that are willing to, do something positively for themselves.
Yeah, that's right. Again, and that comes into the pricing of it as well. If you keep it to a price that, because if I was to charge, $2,500, your equivalent for my service to somebody, and it didn't work for whatever reason, either their fault, my fault, it wasn't the right time for them to do it, then I would feel very uncomfortable with that. But most people will take that risk on that amount of money to sort things out in their own life. And most of the clients that I see now, although yes, I do get a fair number from publicity, most of those clients are still coming word of mouth. One person is bringing the next, is bringing the next, is bringing the next.
From people who have lost weight using your process.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea what the long-term result is? Excuse me, or how permanent the results are?
There's no reason to suggest that after the 4 weeks that the result isn't permanent, because what you're attempting to do is bring about a permanent change in the way that somebody thinks. So it should be permanent. Say, for example, I had a lady who had said to me every night before she goes to bed, she lets her dogs out for a wee, and then when she stands and eats the biscuits, and she said, I did that every single night. And she said, she said, now, I don't want those biscuits there, but I really shouldn't have them. She said, I don't even think about having them in the first place. So you're looking at bringing about that permanent shift in somebody's thinking. And generally, by the end of the 4 weeks, and the reason it's a 4-week program is it takes 4 weeks to form a habit in somebody generally, then they're not going to deviate away from that. I personally make myself very available for people to come back. So if they thought they were slipping or they needed something reinforcing, then they could ring me up about that. But I can count on one hand the number of people who have done that.
And you let them know about that service that you provide.
Absolutely, all the way through the program, because I've built my reputation on the success that I get. And I'm only going to keep that reputation and keep that number of clients coming if the ones that I've seen are happy and they get to where they want to be.
Do you use this with a regressive discovery type approach, or instead of?
I don't tend to use the regression type of thing unless it's clear that there is something underlying everything. In which case, maybe on the third session, I would introduce something like that. But again, it's a rarity, not a norm, to do it.
So I'm not sure I quite understood that. You said you tend to not do the regressive discovery unless it's you deem it necessary?
That's right.
Okay. And somebody asked if you leave the band on.
Yeah, I mean, after the very first session, when that band is, hypnotically fitted, if you like, then it's left. Because again, I haven't had anybody yet that I've made into an anorexic. No. So, somebody's subconscious is only going to take them to where they should be anyway. It's not going to allow them to go below what they should be.
One of our callers asked this question about a friend. They say, I have a close friend who's over 400 pounds. He's been trying to lose enough weight to have the actual gastric bypass surgery, and he wanted to know how you would approach helping him.
Again, it would be along the similar lines of this program. If that gentleman, if it's his belief that it is the gastric surgery that is going to cure him, if you like, then I would take an approach that I use with the system. The only thing that person could maybe do for him in the meantime is a general hypnotherapy session, getting him to focus on smaller amounts of food and eating consciously.
Mm-hmm. And how do you, or do you, weed out eating disorders? And if you do, how do you do that?
Again, it would be on the initial assessment, really, if there was an eating disorder. And I think that that does show itself quite clearly. I mean, most of my clients do seem to be fairly upfront and honest with me anyway, and I certainly wouldn't. And just by looking at somebody, if they're clearly already the size that they should be, and they're wanting a gastric band fitting, then there has to be something, body image or something else underlying that.
Cool. Here's some little bit more specific questions about the actual procedure. One of the original articles discussing this mentioned the use of operating room smells and sounds to simulate a surgical environment, reinforcing the hypnosis. They want to know if it's necessary in your opinion, or is it just bells and whistles? And I'm going to add another question because there's some other one that was similar to that, about them reading that the clinic in Spain that began this technique uses recordings with the sounds of the operating room and the smells associated. Have they done this work successful without these bells and whistles? And if so, how would they recommend we do it? I guess pretty much the same question.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in my clinic, I have to say I do use those bells and whistles. Sometimes the tape recorder with the recording of the hospital theatre sounds, the batteries have run out, in which case I can't use it. Right. And very occasionally I forget to turn my vaporizer on that makes the smell of the hospital as well. And those people still get the same results.
So you tested it.
Yeah, not on purpose, I have to say. But I mean, in hypnosis, you get people to imagine smells and sounds anyway, and they will have their own perception of that. So on one level, is it right to enforce your perception of it on them?
I'm sorry, you have more?
So, yes, I do use those things, but it isn't absolutely necessary.
And does this program deal with the emotional issues around food and overeating?